Hello and welcome back to Aetheral Space 12.8. Burn. We are back.
Yes. Let's just jump right into this one because it's a little bit of a longer one.
Hell yeah.
Rensis 4, correct?
Yeah.
Rensis 4 was a desert planet, scorched and inhospitable, with what little rain that did occur being artificially induced by charitable ventures. For the small groups of people that called the planet their home, hosting an Intermelee of the Dawn contest would surely be the most exciting thing to happen in their entire history. The sheer payoffs they would have received would keep them going for decades, if nothing else. Dragon Hadrian would be fighting there. The Troll was one of the last battlegrounds of the Thousand Revolutions, where thousands of ships had smashed into each other in the atmosphere of a particular gene tyrant's prized garden. Now it was both a graveyard and a junkyard, the ruins of the tyrant's domain coated in the wreckage of countless vessels from all across history. When there was no easy way to dispose of something, people said you sent it to the Troll. So is the Troll the planet or is Rensis? I'm a little confused.
These are different places.
Oh, I see. Dragon Hadrian would also be fighting there. The tropics of Hesa. Hesa or Hesa?
Hesa.
Said to look like a paradise even on its worst days. A vacation spot for the wealthy and distinguished. With an intermelee scheduled to take place there, they wouldn't lack for entertainment. And again, Dragon Hadrian would be fighting there. Curate, Eor Turn, Zenx Bane, Dirge, Kalis Near, Brakashatorata, Peel, Ocean Hate. Ocean Hate? What's the deal with Ocean Hate?
It's an ocean planet.
The Red Marble, is that Mars?
No.
I thought I've heard Mars called that before. Alice's eyes ran down an endless list of names, each and every site chosen to host an intermelee of the Dawn contest. And each and every site, according to these records, playing host to one Dragon Hadrian? He swallowed. There were two possibilities. Either Miss Rhodes' old friend had unlocked the power to clone himself, or these records had been tampered with. Not by the Providenza, you could tell they hadn't edited this information at all, but by the source itself. Someone within the Supremacy, someone powerful, had meddled with this information. Who's Miss Rhodes?
That's Ruth.
Oh. Ellis? Miss Rhodes' voice came through the script. What's the problem? Ellis exchanged a glance with Roman, who was lingering by the door of the trailer. They got us, he mumbled. What do you mean? Who got you? Despite the fact that Rhoda obviously couldn't see him, Ellis shrugged. Someone's tampered with this info. It's got Dragon Hadrian down as being at every one of the intermelees. What the fuck? It'd have to be someone high up, I guess, Ellis murmured. I think maybe they'd have to be in the organizational committee. There's nothing like this for anyone else. It's just Dragon Hadrian's records that have been messed with. It's weird. What do we do, boss? Silence lingered on the other end of the line. Boss? Ruth squeezed her fists for a moment, sinking down into deep and hopeless thought, before she managed to break free, snapping her head back up. If that's all we're gonna get, she said, injecting authority into her voice, then there's no point in us sticking around. Roman, like I said, give us an opening to escape that special officer. I'll join up with the others on my way out. Got it? Right. Roman's gruff voice was certain as ever. Disconnecting from the communicator, Ruth let out the long breath that felt like she'd been holding in for hours. Damn it, damn it! All of this had been pointless! Someone was making them look like idiots! Not pointless. A sly, unwelcome thought crawled up the back of her skull. How was this pointless? They hadn't found out where Dragon was, but they'd found out something else, hadn't they? Dragon's records alone had been meddled with to conceal his location. There was only one person they knew who'd have a reason to do that in the first place. Fix had told Bruno, after all. Dragon Hadrian didn't want to be found. And wherever he'd been these last 2 years, he'd made some very powerful friends. Did he go back to being an administrator? at the Supremacy? Is that what he did? Was he just like, hey, I'm back from my old job. I rescued myself. The fourth thigh of Grand Boss sliced. I thought it was the third thigh.
It was the thigh. Which one was it again?
Hold on. I have an easy way to solve this. I'm opening 12.7 from our DMs.
Okay.
And I'm going to look up thigh, Control F thigh. And it is the third thigh of Grandma.
Well, what do you know? This one, so is this.
You're welcome. The third thigh of Grandma sliced through the air, the knife of bone slamming into Omnigungnir Timer as Rex raised it to defend himself. He caught the display in the moment before the clash. 9:13. The sheer amount of time left wasn't comforting. What kind of state would Rex be in by the time the prediction came true? They lingered there for a moment, Lucius pressing his armament against Rex's. We still don't know what timer does exactly.
No, we know it has like a countdown, but we don't know what that entails.
And also he mentioned like not knowing which way it'll fall.
Yeah.
I am implying it's a countdown till someone dies. And all around them, the overgrown weeds and plants began to wither and die. Green stems and leaves quickly turned to brown and empty, huge bushes becoming limp masses on the floor. Rex adjusted his stance as they clashed. He didn't want that knife coming anywhere near him. The thing about famous Aether armaments were that they were a known quantity. Some of the Godsmith's creations, like the Ribs of Granba, kept in the Supreme Archive, had multiple powers, but the majority did one thing very well. The third thigh of Granba was also known as the Thigh of Preservation. It rapidly drained the moisture from anything around it. As Rex's orange aether sparked past his face, he surely could have kissed it. If not for the infusion it was providing, he had no doubt he'd have turned into a skeleton already, given his proximity to the thigh. Even with that defense, though, he could feel it taking effect. His skin growing taut under his arm. Oh! But is the wielder immune to it?
Yeah.
His head beginning to pound with pain. This was not a thing people were supposed to stay near. Letting it make direct contact would be fatal. What does it look like in his hand?
It's like a knife made of bone.
Oh, well, the solution was simple anyway. Get it very far away from him. Rex transformed his weapon into Omni-Gungnir Hammer, the changing shape of his armament throwing Lucius off balance, and planted a useless blow right against his chest. As Lucius leapt back to avoid the second attack, Rex twirled the weapon in his hands again. Does he have to hit someone to store it, or can he tap the wall 5 times? Okay. Rex twirled the weapon in his hands again, turning it into Omni-Gungnir's spear, the head pointed directly at his enemy. He figured something out about this guy fighting him. This guy wasn't some armament specialist or anything like that. No, he was a collector. Even as he swung these things, he treated them like treasures, honoring the intentions of their creators. Lucius Victory Providenza had far too much respect for these weapons. That was why he would die. What is that reminding me of? Oh, Gilgamesh from Fade. The spear stretched, slamming into Lucius as he blocked it, and it continued to stretch, pushing him high up into the air as it went on and on. Rex had never tested the exact distance, but Omni-Gungnir's spear had an effective range of just over a kilometer. Striking from that range reduced the accuracy to such an amount you were basically guaranteed to miss, but in terms of pushing the enemy away, it was unmatched. Besides, Aether user or not, a fall from a kilometer high would certainly do some damage. Thump! As Lucius's back hit the top of the dome, Rex focused all of his incandescent aether into his hands, keeping the spear steady. This was the most important part. So long as the spear stayed exactly where it was, he could BANG! Lucius broke free of the gap between the spear and the dome, beginning his plummet downwards. Before he could hit the ground, though, he unsheathed yet another sword, the flat weapon allowing him to perch atop the blade like it was a surfboard as it zoomed down towards Rex. Oh, didn't the Musashi do that in Arc 3?
Yeah.
Shit! He had to shorten the spear gun, bring it in close so he could defend himself. Actually, does he? If he changed it to another weapon, it wouldn't still be long, would it? Or does he have to retract before he can change it?
He could change to another weapon, that's another option.
It was like Lucius had read his mind. As his face came into view, those lips curled into a smirk, even as his crimson eyes remained cold. "Band of Tranquility," he said. "You can't revert it." Rex's eyes widened, and indeed you could see the tiniest black speck wrapped around the handle of the spear right below the blade. The Tranquility series, the aether ability of the revolutionary known as the Blind Man. Wasn't that related to Arc 5?
Yeah, he was a legendary figure in Arc 5.
What was he again?
He was like the devil figure in the mythology.
Oh god, he was a revolutionary. So he was like in the 1,000 Revolutions?
Yeah.
Oh shit. Had originally been used against the Gene Tyrants. They locked a mutable object into its current form, preventing transformation. He couldn't get the spear back. Lucius's foot slammed into Rex's stomach, the impact sending him sprawling down to the ground. That's actually just a good ability to have in general, I think, for a lot of people. Good counter ability. The spear remained in place like a... Also, if you use it on yourself, would you be immune to injuries? Because that would be changing.
Not really, no. It's like intentional transformation.
Right. The spear remained in place like a giant stilt as it slipped from Rex's grasp, and Lucius stepped forward menacingly between him and Omni-Gungnir. Victory glinted in his eyes. "It really is a splendid armament," the Black Sheep mused. "The more I see it, the more I want it." "Sorry," Rex winced, pushing himself up into a sitting position. "It's a family heirloom." Lucius's eyes narrowed. "That's irrelevant. Any last words?" "I got a couple." Rex grinned. Omni-Gungnir Turbo Heal! Of course, Omni-Gungnir Turbo Heal was not a real thing. The Aether Armament had no abilities that would allow it to heal him or anything else. Rex had completely made that up on the spot, a ploy to make Lucius hesitate, if only for a moment. That reminds me, there was a question I wanted to bring up to you last time, but I didn't want to interrupt. Mm-hmm. And this might be a fun fact for later, but I was curious if, like, anyone's ever made a misleading technique name to fuck with people. Because you know how, like, the whole history of, like, oh, Iceland's Greenland, Greenland's Iceland.
Yeah, it's absolutely possible.
So, like, someone being like, Super Mega Kill Drill, and it's just, like, a runaway ability or something.
You could very much do that.
Or, like, New World Order Nuke, and it's just, like, a bubble. Of course, Omni-Gungnir Turbo Heal... Oh, sorry, I already read that. It wasn't a terribly well thought out trick either, but it was all Rex had been able to throw together in the moment. Lucius's words had hit home a little too hard. During Rex's childhood, when he and his family were driven from Aberfasad, his father would often talk about Omni-Gungnir. It was the same thing he'd say every time. Every time they discovered an old family friend wasn't so friendly anymore. Every time they had to compromise their morals in order to survive. Always the same words. We may have no home, no allies, no place to go. These people might even say we have no faces. But we have our past, Rex. Don't forget that. I'm holding it here, in my hand. As if he'd let someone else put their hands on his past. This is interesting, because usually people, the morals focus on the future, you know. Leave the past behind. But they treasure their past. Omni-Gungnir Turbo Heal was not a real ability, but that didn't mean he couldn't use a real ability when he said those meaningless words. Lucius Victory Providenza had made far too many assumptions about how Omni-Gungnir worked and what it could do. That was another reason he'd die. The force the hammer had collected burst out from the handle of Omni-Gungnir's spear. It could come out of any spot on the weapon, snapping the Band of Tranquility. There was a flash of orange. Rex didn't need to be making contact to have it transform, as the weapon became Omni-Gungnir Timer, flipping end over end as it fell from the top of the dome. And finally, as the angles lined up perfectly, Timer became Spear once more, and the blade, stretching all the way down from the top of the dome, pierced right through Lucius's back. The Black Sheep looked down at the bloody spearhead emerging from his chest, utterly flabbergasted. His mouth opened uselessly once, twice, as if he could pose some argument to stop his blood vacating his body. Then his spear became Timer once again, opening his wound. He collapsed face first into the mud.
Oh, yeah.
Another little thing Lucius hadn't realized. When Rex transformed Omni-Gungnir, he could choose any part of the old form to become the source of the new form. With Spear, it essentially meant he could transport the next instance of Omni-Gungnir anywhere along its length. Rex kept an eye on Timer as Lucius gurgled on the floor. 3, 2, 1. His twitching stopped. Aberfasad was called the Land of Precognition End. Although Rex's family had been exiled before he could learn any of those secrets, his weapon was more than capable of seeing the future. Timer was the proof of that. It would endlessly count down to the second. How long was remaining until Rex would next see a person die? 0. Oh! But he could also game it by closing his eyes or something, or going blind.
Well, yeah, I guess.
But, like, I called it!
Well, no, he said it's see, but what it means is, like, witness.
Yeah, that's so cool. Blue raised his eyebrows at the spectacle down on the ground below, at the surging orange aether and the spear that had momentarily stretched up into the sky. What the hell was going on down there? The client was paying him good money not to ask questions, but still. Curious minds wanted to know. We haven't met Blue yet.
We have. He's a special officer.
Beep! The special officer stiffened his body in the cockpit of the armored chassis as he heard the all-clear come in. As previously agreed upon, he was to destroy the site and everyone's still inside. Whoever that guy was who'd been using the spear, he wasn't long for this world. Too bad, so sad. Red Aether surged through Blue's arm. Because they're conflicting colors. That's cute. Okay, you can be a little cute as a tree tan, honey.
I'm always cute.
Well, Red Aether surged through Blue's arm and into the workings of the chassis as he began to activate his ability. Some people told him this didn't really count as an ability, that this was just normal infusion, but he said they were full of shit. If it helped you win, it was a special power. End of story. What's his voice?
He's like a kind of a rowdy guy, maybe a little bit raspy. He's like Bakugo.
Gunpowder plot! He
Sure.
grinned with sharpened teeth. The ability was simple and effective. It would treble the explosive... I assume triple.
Oh, yeah.
It would triple the explosive power of anything Blue used it on. For example, the missiles his chassis was packing would surely make quite the fireworks show. An involuntary giggle of anticipation rose to his lips. It was always like this. He resolved himself to come in like a professional, get the job done, and head on home. But oh man, he just couldn't help but love his work. That tower sure was an eyesore. He'd demolish it first. Blue's hands tightened around the controls, and that giggle erupted into a cackle. As it always did. No more waiting. Fire, fire, everything he had. He clicked down on the trigger. And nothing happened? Eh? The special officer called Blue wasn't the only one tightening his fist. In the dark trailer that Ellis had converted into a crude command center, the man they called Roman Hitch had just crushed something in his hand. A dog tag, bearing not a name or an ID, but just one word. Escape. He looked down at it emotionlessly. A miracle tag. That is so cool! So he creates little tags that have words on them, and then they like invoke a miracle. What the fuck? How does he do that? Tan?
You can say.
That is some cool ass shit. I love that. Upon joining Roden Restarosi, Roman Hitch had explained his ability like this. By crushing a miracle tag in his hand, he could unleash the miracle it had stored up, manipulating probabilities to bring it into the world. So does he like have to record miracles from elsewhere?
Well, keep reading.
Because wasn't there an ability like that in Jujutsu Kaisen?
I think so, yeah.
He could store 3 types of miracles: escape, assault, and advantage. Once crushed, it took Roman around an hour to make a new miracle tag, and only 3 could exist at any one time. In this situation, it would do exactly what Ruth Blaine had requested of him, create an opening for them to escape. It was just too bad that the explanation he'd given was a complete and total lie. Wait, what? Are you fucking kidding me? Blue smashed his fists furiously, impotently against the controls before him. The weapon drivers had crashed, the weapon drivers he'd paid an absurd amount of statter for. The weapon drivers that were the best on the market. The weapon drivers that were never ever supposed to crash, had crashed! The expletives that burst from his mouth were made even louder by the cramped confines, all but obliterating his hearing for a while. Fuck, bitch, piss, shit! All in all, it would take the drivers 2 minutes to properly reboot, then 2 more minutes for them to reconnect to the rest of the systems, another minute to run the proper safety checks, which he couldn't disable no matter how hard he tried. All in all, 5 minutes where he could do nothing but sit here with his thumb up his ass. Unbelievable. So, what the hell happened? Bruno asked as they ran down the drainage tunnel. Ruth gritted her teeth, boots splashing against the filthy water below. She'd run out of time on the direwolf set, but that was fine. Even if the bombardment did begin, they should be able to escape the worst of it underground like this. All they had to do was get back to the trailer, grab Ellis and Roman, and get the hell out of here before more Supremacy officers showed up. But there was no denying it. Mission's a failure, she muttered. The records had already been tampered with. There's no telling where Dragon is. What? Bruno barked incredulously. What do you mean? Did your guy mess it up or something? The drone hovering above them bobbed up and down in irritation. Alright?
Yeah.
Hey, Alice mumbled simply. I didn't... If we're doing the Oh, this is Rex. If we're doing the debriefing now, Rex said casually, jogging alongside them with that gaudy spear of his slung over his shoulder. He nodded at Bruno. What the hell happened with you? Bruno furrowed his brow. What do you mean? Rex nodded again. Apparently it seemed that Bruno had forgotten about the unconscious girl strewn over his shoulder. Who was she? One of the Providenza? She sort of looked like one of the archive images they'd gotten of one of the Black Sheep. The Del said one. Had they come to some kind of understanding? It was Bruno's eyes that looked away, but Serena's voice that responded. We couldn't just leave her. Ruth had known Serena long enough to tell when questions wouldn't get answered. Instead, she just looked ahead, steeled her gaze, and sighed. Anyway, this place was awash. We couldn't find anything. The drone bobbed up to her face again. Not true, came Alice's drowsy voice. We found out that there are people in the Supremacy, high up in the Supremacy, who don't want information about Dragon Hadrian getting out. Someone's trying to hide him? Bruno asked. Who? Ruth's sigh deepened. The answer, she thought, was obvious, given what they'd seen so far. The person trying to hide Dragon was Dragon himself, and whatever allies he'd managed to bring together over the last 2 years. Bruno should have recognized that too, judging from the information he'd already been given. But it seemed that was beyond him. As they continued their run down the drainage tunnel, a human silhouette came into view before them, sitting against one of the walls, their exact identity obscured by the putrid fog. Ellis's drone cast a flashlight down to illuminate them, but Ruth never had any doubt about who'd be standing before them. Given her ability, there was no way that girl would have lost a small fry like this. Indeed, the one sitting there was Alice, her clothing ragged and her face covered in blood. She raised a hand in greeting, and even that effort was enough to produce a noticeable wince. Her transformation ability was powerful, but it put her out of commission for several hours. That at least was a mercy. It meant Ruth didn't have to see that horrifying magical girl all the time. I forgot her voice. It was like Valley Girl at first, but I think it changed.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't say Valley Girl, yeah.
Hey, Alice called out, her voice hoarse. We win? Bruno was the one who answered her. We didn't get what we came here for, if that's what you're asking. Why are you still down here? Weren't you meant to be dealing with one of the black sheep? Alice raised a pink eyebrow. You're standing in one of the black sheep right now, buddy. Ruth glanced down and saw that that was no exaggeration. A single eyeball was floating down the stream, brushing past her boot. Swallowing down nausea, she stepped out of the way of the viscera and let out a shuddering breath. There was no hiding that she was disturbed by the sight, but Bruno's mind still seemed to be on the failure of their objective. He ran his hands over his face, pacing back and forth in the filthy water. All the while, he muttered to himself. I was sure, he said. I was sure of this. Damn it! God damn it! This is such bullshit. Is this the first time someone said God instead of why?
No.
Oh.
God is...
Oh, this whole time I've been writing why damn it like a fool in the whole play. No, 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 no! He looked up at Ruth, and the despair in his eyes was such that her heart nearly broke there and then. I'm sorry, Ruth. It's another one of my wild goose chases. Ruth shook her head, stepping forward and seizing him by the shoulders to stop him in his tracks. No, she said forcefully. You didn't do anything wrong. You were right. We don't know where Dragon is, but we know he's out there. And we know where he's going. Bruno swallowed. Where's he going? Somehow, Ruth said. Somehow I can't picture Dragon losing anymore. He's clearly been planning whatever this is for a while. Wherever he is, whichever inner melee he ends up at, I feel like I just know he's going to win. And when he wins... Didn't someone already see him win one? Who was that?
That was the outer melee.
Oh. That was who?
No one actually saw it. They saw it on the news.
Oh, okay. That was the outer, and now he's in the inners.
Yeah.
Bruno finished her thought. The Dawn Contest proper. Azumha, the capital. But you're not saying... We can't just... Ruth's eyes shone with resolution. Resolution that would allow no more argument. If Dragon's going to Azumha, then we just need to be there waiting for him. How many people end up at the final Dawn Contest? Is it 32?
32, yeah.
Yeah, for each inner melee, and then 33 makes a Climo, right?
Yeah, sort of. She doesn't count as one of the actual contestants, though. She comes at the end.
Right. Interesting. Alright. Popcorn.
Golden...
Oh, whoops, hang on. Real quick. Sorry, 1 sec. My... 1 moment. Alright, you still with me?
Yeah.
Sorry, my headphones randomly turned off. Popcorn.
Golden Grid Luxury Suite. It's Pesh, Supremacy Space. Minister Grisham Moores, known to some as the Serpent of Pesh, sipped his wine as he watched a videograph before him.
Have we heard about Pesh before?
Yeah, he appeared in Arc 11. He was the one who was, like, scheming with the Voiceloid Minister and Stenhouse to, like, send the fleets to leave the fields.
I gotcha.
He'd only just gotten out of the shower and was so clad only in a bathrobe, his wet hair slicked back and dripping on the marble floor behind the couch. With all these creature comforts, he couldn't help but feel decadent, but sometimes that wasn't so bad. The outer melees had officially completed, and so the winners would be passing on to the 32 inner melees, after which they would pass into the Dawn Contest proper. It also meant that the Dawn Pardons would be coming into effect, temporary immunity to prosecution for past crimes, so long as the individual remained part of the Dawn Contests. That meant that his friend had less to worry about, of course, but also meant a great deal of work for Moores and his colleagues on a Dawn Contest.
No! Oh no!
Best to get the decadence in while he still had a spare minute.
Moores is his sponsor? He'd
received word from Blue a few hours ago. The Providenza facility on Granru had been thoroughly destroyed, but there was a good chance some of the targets, some witnesses had escaped. Moores couldn't quite decide if that was a blessing in disguise or not. Originally he'd been frustrated, but once Blue had sent over his footage from the scene, he'd realised that killing some of these people could have been disastrous for him. At least this way...
Because they're Dragon's friends. Oh no.
At least this way the facts of his involvement had been destroyed, if nothing else. Ring, ring. He sighed and steeled himself. Now came the conversation he'd been dreading. Moores calmly picked up the script from the coffee table before him and put it to his ear. Give me 1 sec. We just edit live.
Oh no. No.
Speaking, he said. As expected, he was greeted by the loud and crass voice of the usual middleman, the one who never gave his name. Yo! The young man said, volume forcing Moores to move the script away from his ear. You fucked up, my guy! Moores didn't rise to the bait. If this is about the incident on Granru, he said, then I can confirm those people made it out unscathed. I had no way of knowing they'd be there when I sent Blue to eliminate the place. The voice chuckled. Still, boss man ain't happy. He's wondering why you didn't ask him before setting this whole thing up. Kinda weird, you know? Not really feeling the team spirit of you going behind his back like that. Perhaps he's your boss, Moores raised an eyebrow. But I would consider our relationship one akin to business partners. It's only natural for me to act independently when the need arises. Yeah, the contact went on, clearly not having listened at all. Not really feeling the love here. Hey, you want to tell the boss man yourself? He's sitting right next to me. Moore stiffened, his hands tightening around the script.
Can you imagine a couple arcs ago anyone being afraid of Dragon? And now this guy's like losing his mind, like he's encountered Yujiro.
It wasn't as if he'd never met or spoken with this man before, but after they made their initial agreements, all further contact had been done through this rowdy fellow. Why would you want to speak directly to Moores now? Had the incident on Granru been that serious? I don't know if that's Nessa. There was a click, and the line shifted. The loud voice of the previous man was replaced by dead silence. If Moores really listened, though, if he strained his ears, he could just barely hear something, the quietest breathing. Moores found himself having to swallow back his anxiety before he could build up the will to speak. Hello? He finally said. The person on the other end answered. This was your mistake. In sheer contrast to the previous man, their voice was soft and calm, as if every word they spoke was an utterly obvious fact. Yes, completely calm, seemingly calm, but didn't the mere fact that they were having this conversation mean that this man was furious? Moores would have to play this carefully. If we're talking about the Granru incident, Moores said slowly, then I understand I acted inappropriately. Your friend made that quite clear. But I feel as though I acted as best as I could, given the information presented. No. The voice interrupted, as calm as ever. You misunderstand. This is your mistake. You only get the one. The call ended.
Oh, there's no way Dragon's throwing his dick around like this. No way.
Moores let out a heavy breath, one that felt like he'd been holding it in for several minutes. His hand groped around the couch, finally grabbing onto the arm of the furniture to keep himself steady. Even though he'd just gotten out of the shower, his face was slick and burning with sweat. That man, it was as if he had some sort of pressure, one that had trickled out from his voice and somehow reached Moores an untold distance away. Planting his forearm over his eyes, Richard Moores lay back on the couch and chuckled in relief to himself. Really, what a frightening man Mr. Grand Hadrian was.
Sentences no one said ever.
He just said it.
Before this chapter. Oh my god.
Shadow Dragon.
Meanwhile, if this was an anime, it would pan over to Dragon and he'd go, achoo. He wouldn't even sneeze, just say it.
He's having his DM monologue in the dark.
Aether questions. I have a fun one, but you probably will tell me you can't answer. But let me see if there's anything in the thread first. Let's see. Nope, doesn't look like it. Alright, so mine is, not counting Badge of Honor, what publicly known... Because you mentioned a lot of people... It seems like there's a community around Aether. You mentioned, like, people try this technique, they know this, this is famous for why. What, throughout history, is considered to have been the most powerful Aether ability? Because I know they're all situated and powerful in certain circumstances, but what's the one that people collectively tend to, like... When you get the Aether power scalers out in Universe, what's the one they point at?
Probably very high up there, if not at the top, will be the Supreme's Aethro and Einsof.
Einsof.
Because the power of it just grew exponentially the longer it was used, until it cracked a planet.
Right. So that's the one.
Yeah.
And what would be the first non Cadman one? Let's say.
It's hard to say because raw power isn't often the way it goes with Aether abilities, like the biggest explosion or whatever.
Right. So, but I guess like what one's considered to be like the most undefeatable?
It's hard to say on the spot.
I had the idea of one that's just like someone making a mini black hole, and it's like, what do you do against that?
Yeah, that could be up there. Unchained, it would be called.
Yeah, Unchained. It's just like a miniature black hole for like point. It's like the fucking Gojo domain space, like 0.5 seconds, miniature black hole, and then you're dead.
Well, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for watching. Any other lore fun facts? Because there's nothing in the thread right now.
Nothing I can think off the top of my head here.
All right.
Well, if we are talking about Granba, interesting fact. This is his third fight. He was a scurrant with 4 eyes, 4 arms, and 4 legs. There's quite a few armaments out there.
I'm literally imagining, and I assume this was based off like that old picture from like Da Vinci or Jesus or whatever, like the dude spread out with all the eyes and
but
arms.
with 4 eyes as well.
Yep. One thing I want to say,
and he was also scaly like a fish.
I've been meaning to say this at the end of every Aether episode, but I constantly forget. Is if you're enjoying the series and you want to see more and support Tanhoney, don't forget that there is a Patreon that I assume Tanhoney will put in the description.
Yeah.
And feel free to check that out. It's like $5 a month, and you get a week ahead of time. You also get access to the patrons only channel where you can talk about the latest chapters, and like we love posting theories in there. It's fairly active. Make sure to check that out. Otherwise, thank you guys for listening or reading as always. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.